Good morning, everyone. This is Dave Wirt, the meteorologist in charge, out here at the National Weather Service in Blacksburg, Virginia. The time is a little before 8 a.m. on Friday, June 24th. This YouTube briefing will review the weather that we're expecting for the rest of today, Friday, into Saturday. Looking at the map before you, what we're looking at here is basically precipitation over the past week. And it's not too much of a surprise, especially after yesterday's, in some instances, historical precipitation event, as well as widespread severe weather, that the axis of very, very heavy rain over the past several days, yesterday in particular, has been from Greenbrier County southeast toward the Lynchburg area. Specifically in Greenbrier County, precipitation averages in excess of a half a foot, and in some instances close to a foot, has brought many of the rivers and streams well out of their banks, in some instances on some of the major rivers near historical levels. This high water will continue today, and with the threat of additional showers and thunderstorms, that situation may not get much better. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Obviously, there was also a lot of severe weather. We are still under a threat for severe weather today, although we are not expecting the magnitude of the event that we saw yesterday on Thursday. So let's talk just briefly about what the hydrologic situation is. We would encourage everyone to go to weather.gov/Blacksburg to get to our home page, and there you'll see a depiction graphically of the state of the weather. Specifically in green, these are the areas where we have river flood warnings still up. Regardless of where you happen to be, even if you're still near a creek or stream, those water levels are still probably up, probably no longer out of their banks. The response now is in the major rivers. So if you're interested in a local waterway where there's a river, you can go to Rivers and Lakes here, click on River Forecast Maps, and from there you'll be able to see exactly what the state of some of the local rivers are. Obviously, those rivers that are in purple right now are in major flooding. You'll see the color code in the right, and you can just bring your cursor over it and a link will pop up that will show you the current stage. Specifically on the Greenbrier River at Alderson, you can see here that the stage is well up above major, which is 19 feet, and it is now looking like it's just finally peaked, just at about 22 feet, and it's on its way down. Further east at the James River at Buchanan, we're seeing that they're into the minor stage now. It looks like that trend is beginning to fall over and may not necessarily reach moderate before beginning to fall as well later today. A little further north, James River at Lick Run, that has crested now in the moderate stage and is now beginning to fall. Elsewhere, these color codes will change as the water levels change, so you might want to come back to that site quite frequently. Again, I preface that these trends and forecasts are based on water that is already in the river and expected to come into the river. If we happen to have any additional significant heavy rainfall, those trends may change and we'll update the site accordingly. So let's talk about what is going on right now. That low pressure system that was expected to push southeast of us, it is only begrudgingly doing so. It's still sitting pretty much over the central Appalachians and is going to take most of the day still to move southeast. This is early this afternoon. You can see the depiction. And by this evening, still pretty much over Virginia into the mid-Atlantic region, and only later tonight and then by finally Saturday morning does it push to the southeast as high pressure begins to build in from the north. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we're still under the gun for strong to potentially severe thunderstorms. The greatest risk would be mainly over the areas of central Virginia south into North Carolina, but that marginal threat does extend as far north and west as southeastern West Virginia as well. Again, we're not expecting as widespread of a significant weather threat as yesterday, but any additional rain on areas where the ground is already saturated will bring a much more rapid response, and so we have to keep that in mind. Tornado threat today, not really very large, 2% or less. This threat today would be primarily from wind and possibly also from hail, and that would be mainly later this afternoon into perhaps the mid-evening hours before we begin to lose our heating from the day, in which case then things will trend downwards, and certainly by tomorrow morning, even though we'll have still the threat of some showers and thunderstorms over the area, even into Saturday, the threat of severe weather and the threat of widespread precipitation will end, such that maybe additional hydrologic issues, flooding issues will no longer exist. This is the forecast from the Blacksburg forecast office. As far as the probability of precipitation today, you can still see it's quite high, ranging from about 39 to 40% in southeastern West Virginia into the lower 60s across much of Virginia, into perhaps about 60 or 58% in Northside, North Carolina. And we shift that forward 12 hours to tonight, and that precipitation probability begins to decrease a little bit, but still in the 30 to 50% range. I'll go ahead again to Saturday, and finally that drops off to about the 15 to 20%. So Saturday, by and large, should be dry. So we do have one more day of the risk of severe weather, and of course under the air mass that we have, any of those stronger storms, in addition to producing the potential for some hail and strong straight-line winds, may also produce locally heavy rain, which could result in isolated additional flooding concerns. So please keep that in mind as you go through the day, and also reference the briefing slides that will attach to this YouTube briefing, such that you can be as prepared as you possibly can. Thanks very much for listening to this briefing.